Hi everyone, welcome to Cognify. So in today's video, we'll be doing a bit of trigonometry. So we are given 4 tan theta equal to -3, and we are told that cos of theta is positive. Okay, so now we can use a sketch to calculate these values here for 2.1 and 2.2. So let's go to our sketch here. So we'll have we'll have the y-axis and we'll have the x-axis. And let's put down a few points. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here we'll have -1, -2, -3, and -4, -1, 2, 3, and 4. And lastly, along the positive y-axis, we'll have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now here, if you look at what's given, right, we have 4 tan theta is equal to -3. We can rewrite this in terms of tan theta. So this will be -3 over 4. So this is a point, right, which we can put on our sketch. Okay, but we need to determine which side. Because the possible values here are, if we check here, right, the possible values here would be the coordinates would be it's either, because this here, right, tan theta is basically opposite over adjacent. In other words, it's y over x. But we don't know which sign, which was sign that's negative sign. Okay, so the possible coordinates here are 4 and -3, or -4 and +3. So it would either be here at this point or this point here. Okay, so at this point here it's -4 and 3, and at this point here is 4 and -3. That's why we need to make use of the other information that we're given here. Okay, but what does this tell us? So now if we take this, right, and expand on it a bit, so we'll have cos of theta. We know that cos of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent over hypotenuse is what? It's basically x over r. But we are told that this is positive, right? We know that the hypotenuse is always strictly positive. Okay, so here we can conclude that x is also positive. So what does that mean? What this means is that between these two coordinates, the one that we're going to choose is this one here, because x is a positive. So we'll discard this point here and go with the other point. So the other point is this one here. Okay, and lastly, let us rotate. We're going counterclockwise, so we're going that direction all the way there. So this whole part here is angle theta. So now we've got our sketch. We have an idea of what what uh what it looks like, right? So from this we can then go on to find values. But before we do that, let's quickly just define, because we see here, right, we've got these points here, but we didn't find the hypotenuse. So before we continue, let's find it, right? The hypotenuse is basically x squared plus y squared. Okay, we square root. So this will be 16 plus 9, which is equal to square root of 25, which is equal to 5. So this part here is 5. Okay. So now let's go and find the values. So in the first question, question 2.1, we are required to find the value of 5 sine of beta plus 3 cot of beta, cotangent, right? So let us write this down, right? So we'll have 5 sine beta plus 3. So cot of theta is basically 1 over 10. Okay, and 1 over 10 is basically cos over sine. Okay, so you need to know how to manipulate these formulas. So now in the next part, we now need to find those individual values, right? So now let's see here. Let's do them here separately, right? So for sine of theta, what do we have? We know sine of theta is opposite, which is y, over hypotenuse, which is r. So from here, what can we tell here? We know the coordinate that we are using is this, right? So it's going to be minus 3 over 5. And then for cos of theta, this is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 4 and hypotenuse is 5. So now we have these values, we can just plug them in. So we'll have 5 here. Sine of theta is minus 3 over 5 plus 3 times. Okay, so we'll have cos of theta, so we'll have 4 over 5. You see, sine of theta is at the bottom, right? So now we're going to have to flip it around. So let's not forget the negative. So we'll just put it there separately. Multiplied by sine of theta is minus 3 over 5, right? We put the negative there. So that 3 over 5, we're going to flip it around. So we'll have 5 over 3. So now let's see what we can cancel out. This 5 will cancel out with that. This will cancel out with that. This cancels with that. And now this simplifies this for us, right? So we'll have minus 3, okay, minus, because we've got a negative here, right? Minus 4. So the final solution here is minus 7. And that is basically it, right? So the sketch actually does help a lot. When you break it down into its constituents, the different parts, components, right? Your x, your y, your hypotenuse, you can then tackle literally most of these questions where you're required to find values. So now let's tackle one more. So the last question, question 2.2. Let us move this here. Okay, in question 2.2, we are now required to find 25 cos squared theta. So now, let's see here. This is basically equal to 25. Okay, then we'll have cos of theta squared. So I'm just rewriting it, okay? So now here, what I'm going to do is replace the cos theta with this value here. So that is 4 over 5, and that is squared. So now, what do we have here? 25 multiplied by 16 divided by 25. So now you can see here that 25 cancels out with 25, and the answer is 60. So here yet again, we referred to the sketch, right? And what we had broken up here, sine theta and cos theta. So this is a good approach to take, right? So anytime you are given this type of question, just draw a sketch. Make sure you have added this point in the correct quadrant, right? Because we've got 4 different quadrants. Okay, that's why you need to carefully read what's given. Here we were told that cos theta is positive. Okay, so from that we're able to derive that the x coordinate has to be positive. So what does that mean? That the y coordinate would be negative. That's how we're able to find this point. If we didn't get this point right, and we refer to the other point, which is here, all of our answers would have been incorrect. That's why it's very important to pick this up at the very start. But that will be it for this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.